Hi there, my name is Terry Hoknes. When I was a young kid, my favorite comic book series was Action Comics because I loved Superman so much. And I always dreamed of owning an Action Comics #1. As I grew up, I landed up dealing in collectibles, and comic books was always my specialty. And it's been fun to watch how Action Comics #1 has become probably the best investment collectible in the entire world. And what I wanted to do was take some of my interest in comic book history and taking an aspect from investing in comics and how they have been a good choice for collectors to get into. And so I started compiling information from all the best sources. And of course the best source that there is the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide, which is published annual by Robert Overstreet. And it's the best place to start. But what I wanted to do was look at the history of investing in these books and look for trends and just see how well and good choice it is to invest in comic books. And so what I've done is I've taken all this information and I've started compiling a series of books that specializes in specific topics, genres, or specific titles. And so I'm just going to show you a few examples today. Here's the first one, which is Investing in Comic Books, and this one looks specifically at The Brave and the Bold, which is one of the most successful DC Comics titles ever. And so the pattern that I've created for this series of books is to start off, first of all, with just a basic overview of the history of investing in this particular series. We use Overstreet Price Guide statistics for various years to show the trends over the years. And it's quite fun to see such things as Brave and the Bold, number 28, which is a major key issue. In the first price guide was only $5, and this year jumped up to $16,000. And that's just one interesting thing. You can have fun by looking at the trends and watching the upward growth in prices of these comics over the years. So I look at all the key issues for this particular series, basic market report, look at some trends that have stayed the same, and I also look for things that have changed over the years. And then from that, I usually break into about roughly 30 of the key issues for a particular series. In this case, we look at the oldest Brave and the Bold issues. So we look at number 1, and I give a large cover image of each issue. Also, there's a breakdown of some of the key information for the issue, such as artist, writer, first appearances, anything important about the comic. But then I also go in and I break it down into showing how many copies have been sent in to get graded by CGC, and then I also look closer at how many high-grade copies are there. And then as an auction source, I use Heritage Auctions, a database of sales, because they have sold probably 1 million comics in the last decade. So we get a good idea. So if we just use Brave and the Bold number 1 as our first sample here, we'll see that CGC has 38 copies have been given a universal grade, but 0 copies have been given a grade of 9.0 or better, which gives us an idea of how scarce it is in high grade. And then Heritage in the last decade has sold 19 copies. But if you average that out, that's only about 2 copies a year, so it gives you the idea of how scarce this book is, even though it is an expensive book. After that, I break it down and I will give you some year samples from the Overstreet Price Guide for all conditions, right down from good all the way up to near mint. And then I will show the highest sales ever achieved on Heritage Auctions as samples to give you an idea of what people have actually paid for copies on the market over the years. And then finally, the entire census for the book for all copies graded by CGC, including restored copies, autographed copies, etc. So I do this for roughly 30 of the main key issues, and that's looking at truly the most collected ones or the most valuable ones of the series. And then in some of my books I will also break it down and give you a bit of history on the title and its run itself. I also give at the back of each book tips on investing in comic books, some information. If you're new to the hobby, you'll want to know some of this stuff. If you've been in the hobby, some of this might seem common sense. But I give you a lot of tips on what to look for if you're picking something for a good investment. So that's just an example of that book. And we're going to flip to another book, which again is in kind of the same format. Investing in Comic Books, The Incredible Hulk. And this is the Marvel series, which began in 1962, ran for only 6 years, and then was restarted again 6 years later. So we look at, again, about 30 of the key issues. Again, we look at some investing tips and how things have changed over the years. And then we have this huge breakdown, for example, of growth over the years to see how the comics have been growing in value over the years. And then again, once again, the same thing. We look at the breakdown, information on each issue, cover image, some samples of Overstreet Price Guide prices in all conditions, the highest sales from heritage auctions, and all of the CGC census for all copies sent in to get graded in the last decade. And in this book, for example, I also have a history of the character of the Incredible Hulk. So if you're just a general fan, you want to know more about all the key issues and what's been happening and who's worked on the series since 1962, you can learn a lot there. One of my favorite things to do, though, is taking specific themes or genres or publishers and compiling a special book of what is the hottest issues, best investment books per topic. And so you won't find this kind of information anywhere else unless you literally were to take the Overstreet Price Guide and basically rewrite it yourself, which is just about what I did to come up with all this information. So here, for example, Investing in Comic Books, we look at all the horror genre-themed comics from Atlas and Marvel Comics. So we start back in 1949 and we go through the whole history. And again, we have a market report that just looks at overall what has been the best horror genre books to invest in and any trends over the years. And again, in this one, I have a breakdown. I actually show you 57 different books that are now valued at $800 or more. And so there's 57 of them now. And a lot of things have changed over the years. Because, just for an example, only in 1995, there were only 2 comics that were worth that much. So we've gone from 2 to 57 since 1995. So prices have definitely gone up. Demand is growing for the horror genre. So we look at all the titles. So I also, in this book, give a history and chronology of all the Atlas and Marvel horror comic titles. And there's quite a few of them. In total, I count 23 from the Atomic Age. And then we continue into the Bronze Age, and then we've got 40 more. But the book, of course, because I picked 30 of the most valuable, we land up looking at only Atlas issues in this series, as most of the Bronze Age books are not that expensive yet. And so again, you get the idea. We ran through a whole bunch of the main titles: Journey into Mystery, Journey into Unknown Worlds, Marvel Tales, and all the most valuable and key issues from all these series: Mystery Tales, Mystic, and on and on. So that just gives you some rough idea. So basically, you know, I'm just a fan of comic books, so I just keep expanding and trying new titles, new compilations of information, and I'm always looking forward to doing this for anyone who's a fan of comics and just wants this information. The information is out there and available, but what I wanted to do was actually have it compiled in one source. You actually have it at your fingertips, basically. There's so much information here. If you're trying to decide as a smart investor what to pick, this is all the information you need to really know what you're getting yourself into, and you can compare it to other books of age, rarity, value, and you have a lot to go through. And so I'm just hoping this is fun for the investor, but also it's good information to have. They say the knowledge is power. So that's the whole goal, is just to have a lot of great information here and have it in a way that's never been offered before. So this is my series, Investing in Comic Books. I've been basically doing this for all genres, for all the ages, for the main companies, not just Marvel and DC, and of course all the main titles that people collect. And so of course there's actually hundreds of popular titles from the Golden and Silver Age, so there's lots of good ones to pick from. So I have lots of titles, and I'm continually writing these books and putting them together. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on these books, and if you're interested in any, please get in touch with me. Thank you.